Alright guys, now we're going to do question 4, and it says find the zeros of the quadratic by either factoring or using the quadratic formula. Well, let's first see if it can be factorable. If not, we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. So for factoring, remember it has to equal 0 all the time. Also for the quadratic formula, it has to equal 0. So we need to make it equal to 0. So right now we have the 3. So I need to move the 3 to the other side. To move the 3 to the other side, you have to get the opposite sign. So it's going to be minus 3, minus 3. This ends up canceling because it ends up being 0. So then now I have x squared minus 2x minus 3. We cannot combine those because they have different letters. This one has a letter, that one doesn't have a letter, so you cannot combine them. Alright, so we're going to factor out factors of 3 that subtract to give you 2. Well, factors of 3 is just 1 times 3. Do they subtract? Yes. Do they give you 2? Yes. So it is factorable. So then now I have x equals 0. We're doing 3 and 1 because those are my factors, 3 and 1. You are subtracting, so that tells you that the signs are different. And the bigger number gets that sign. So the 3 is bigger than the 1, and they are different signs. So this is going to be negative 3 because that's the bigger sign. And positive 1 equals 0. So I already factored it out. Now we just need to figure out what the answers are, and we split them up because you have to have 2 answers because it's a quadratic. So then I have x minus 3 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. We solve for x, so then this one we add 3 to both sides to get x by itself. X equals 3. Here we subtract 1 to both sides. X equals negative 1. And those are your 2 zeros. What do zeros mean? Zeros mean where they cross the x-axis. They're the x-intercept, also known as roots, solutions. Now, I'm going to go ahead and plug this in the calculator so you can see. But once again, it also has to equal 0. So I'm going to input this part. So it's x squared minus 2x minus 3. X squared minus 2x minus 3. And I'm going to graph it. I'm going to press graph. For some reason, it's not focusing. I don't know. Alright, so here if you could see it crossed at negative 1 and positive 3, which is what my answers tell me, negative 1 and positive 3. That's where they cross the x-axis. And that's why they're called zeros, because the y is equal to 0. Alright. Okay, let's go ahead and do another one. Okay, here we go. Find the zeros of the quadratic by either factoring or using the quadratic formula. It's already equal to 0, kind of. I know it says f of x, but it's already equal to 0. So we are going to factor it. Let's see if it's factorable first. Usually factoring is a lot faster than the quadratic formula. So we're going to do 6x squared minus 11x plus 3. We are going to multiply the 6 times the 3 because you have a number in front. Alright. Sorry about that, guys. It's because I have to hold it with my other hand. Okay. 6 times 3 is 18. Factors of 18. 1 times 18. 2 times 9. 3 times 6. They have to add. And they're also the same sign. Remember that. If you add, they're the same sign. So we're going to add the numbers. We have 19, 11, and 9. Add is the same sign. Okay, so then let's go ahead and set it up. So we have 6x divided by 6. Don't forget that step. Some kids usually forget. Okay, so we're doing the 11. So it's going to be 2 and 9. They're the same sign, 9 and 2. The bigger number gets that sign, so it's going to be -9. And when do you add? When they're the same sign. So if that's a negative, then that one has to be a negative. Now we're going to factor out the greatest common factor. Here, a number they both divide by is 3. So we're going to factor out the 3. So you're left with 2x minus 3. Don't forget, that's not a 9, it's a 3. Because then you're going to check to see. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So make sure you factor that last term. Greatest common factor here, a number they both divide by is 2. So you're left with 2 times what gives you 6? 3x. 2 times what gives you 2? 1. Not 0, it's 1. And this 3 and this 2, when you multiply them, they become 6, which ends up canceling with the bottom 6. And now I'm left with this part, 2x minus 3 and 3x minus 1. Now that would be my answer if I was just factoring. But they want you to find the zeros. So we have to make this equal to 0. You guessed it. We're finding the zeros. We're finding the solutions, the roots, the x-intercepts, all those weird names. Okay, so we split them up same way as we did in the other one. So we're going to have here 2x minus 3 equals 0. 3x minus 1 equals 0. And we solve for x. So here we want x by itself, so we need to get the minus 3. We're going to make it add 3 to both sides. This cancels, so I have 2x equals 3. I ran out of room. And we divide by 2. X equals 3 halves. And then here we solve for x. Add 1, add 1. 3x equals 1. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. X equals 1/3. And there it is. That's your answer. Those are my zeros for that quadratic. So we had to factor first, and then we make it equal to 0, and then we split them up to find the solutions.